So Lent is the season of preparation. Remember that? Right? We started Lent on March 1st. So we have a memory verse for this season. It's this one. It's from Mark chapter 1, verse 3. Say it with me. Prepare the way for the Lord's coming. Clear the road for him. Let's say that again. Prepare the way for the Lord's coming. Clear the road for him. So this is how we prepare, because we want to make a way for God to come and work in our lives. And so that's why we prepare for what God is going to do. And when we look at the wilderness, when we think about the wilderness, because Jesus, when before the season of Lent is based on Jesus going into the wilderness, then I said this because I really believe this. Before your next big step lies the wilderness. I mean, the wilderness is there. You're going to go through it, but beyond that is your next big step. So, one, to make sure that you got that, and that's going to be our, a theme that we'll continue to come back to during this series on Lent. Today, message is titled Lent, the Hinge. And we'll get back to what the hinge means and how it works, but the hinge. So, Jesus, Lent was based upon Jesus going into the wilderness. So the question that I came up with was, what does Jesus do while he's in the wilderness? I mean, he's going to be there for 40 days, right? What do you do for 40 days? We think about over the past 40 days, what are some of the things that you've done? Now, think about it. Okay, you're out in the wilderness. What are you going to do for 40 days? So I kind of want to start here because it's really important to understand what happens in those 40 days while Jesus is in the wilderness. For that, we turn to Matthew chapter 4, verses 2 to 3, and Luke chapter 4, verses 1 to 2. Both of these are about Jesus being in the wilderness. So let me read that. For 40 days and 40 nights, well, he's out there for 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, he fasted and became very hungry. During that time, the devil came and said to him, ... And during the wilderness is where we hear about Jesus being tempted by the devil 3 times. Remember that? So we'll cover that a little bit later, but today I want to show you that. Well, so one thing, the first thing that what happened to Jesus while in the wilderness, there's no internet, right? There's no smartphone. There's no television, radio. Not carrying any books. He's just out there. So what do you do? Well, the first thing he did, he's fasting, and he became what? He gets hungry. Well, that's kind of obvious. Right? It's like, you know what? Some things that you read in the scriptures, you go, what is it doing there? And this is one of them. He's going, well, he's fasting. Of course he's going to get hungry. So you got to know what is going on. I think what happens here is in the wilderness, he's fasting. Now, I don't know if God said, go fast and fast in the wilderness. I don't know if that's what happened. Or whether it was God said, go into the wilderness, and Jesus said, oh, while I'm here, I'm going to fast. We don't know which came first, but we do know this. He's fasting. There is something happening where he is no longer receiving, and because of that, he's now hungry. When you go into the wilderness, and this is something I think that has happened to me, when you go into the wilderness, oftentimes it's because you're needing something, right? It's because something that you wanted, or something that you need, it's been taken away, or it's been lost, or it's been turned, upside down. And so you have this need, this hunger, if you will, for God to solve that, for God to settle that, for God to cure that, for God to give you some solutions. And that's where this hunger comes. So this fast, when you're in the wilderness, sometimes this fast is not even something that you have selected to do. Sometimes this fast is because of the thing that is lacking. That is what you're needing, and because of that, now you're hungry for it. So you're asking God, please, this is what I need. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I hope for. This is what you have to give me. This is why I'm in the wilderness. And for that, you are hungry. And when you're hungry like that, you are desperate. And when you're desperate like that, you're seeking the Lord, and you're feeling like I am in the wilderness until you get that in your life. Am I making sense? So this is what happens to you in the wilderness, is you get hungry. It's kind of obvious, but when you think about it, that's what's really happening when you're in the wilderness. You get hungry. The second thing that happens is we read in Luke chapter 4, verse 1 and 2. He was led by the Spirit in the wilderness where he was tempted by the devil for 40 days. Jesus ate nothing at all at that time, and there it is again. He became very hungry. But the second thing that happens to you, first thing you get hungry. Second thing, you get tempted. And the temptations are varied. And you think about the temptations that happened to Jesus while he was in the wilderness. And then we'll spend more time on the specific temptation. But today I want to summarize those temptations in this way. The three temptations of Jesus was to doubt God's promise to provide, to doubt God's plan for what he wants done, and then to doubt God's power that he can do anything about it. Is that making sense? When we go into the wilderness, we're hungry. We're knowing that this is what I need, God. And then God says, I will provide. And we go, are you really going to provide? We start doubting that. We start doubting God's provision, God's ability to hold on, to follow through on his promises. So that's the temptation to say, I know God promised that, but I'm not feeling it. I doubt God's promise. The other thing that happens is we doubt God's plan. God said, do it this way. Do it this way. We go, I don't know, God. I kind of do it that way. It's not going to work. I've never seen it work before. And we're wondering, we're saying, God, in fact, I'm going to try my own plan. In fact, God, because I don't believe that you can actually do it, that you have nice promises, but I got to take matters in my own hand. I have to execute my own plan. And the third thing then is we doubt God's power. Because we see that, okay, God, I've been praying and waiting. I've been thinking and asking. Nothing's happening. Are you really going to do anything? Because we're hungry. That thing that we're looking for in our lives has not been solved. And so we doubt God's promise. We doubt God's plan. We doubt God's power. And that's what we're tempted to do in the wilderness. Now, the other thing happens to us when we're in the wilderness, Mark chapter 1, verses 12 to 13. The Spirit then compelled Jesus to go into the wilderness where he was tempted by Satan. We saw that. He was out among the wild animals, and angels took care of him. Now, he's out among wild animals. It's dangerous. But what's really happening here is he's alone. He's by himself. There's no other people with him. One of the things that happens to us when we're in the wilderness, and I've experienced this, where how I feel, I can't explain it to you. There's no real way for you to understand what I'm feeling. And because of that, I feel like I am alone. Does that happen to you? Where you see things are happening to you, and you're just like, I can tell someone what's going on, but they still don't understand. They can't appreciate it. And they're going to be kind, they're going to be gentle with me, they're going to be patient, they're going to try to be encouraging, but they still don't understand. I am still alone. And that's what happens when we're in the wilderness. You see, when we're in the wilderness, we get hungry, we get tempted, and we get lonely. Some of you are experiencing that today. Some of you are experiencing these things in your life. These are the three gets that happen in the wilderness. You get hungry, tempted, and you get lonely. Now, the one thing that you do not get is you do not get relief because you're in the wilderness. And the thing that we're hoping for, the thing that we're wanting for, the relief that we see, it's not coming. That means you're in the wilderness. It's just not coming. So the model for the wilderness is Jesus going, the model for this process is Jesus going into the wilderness. Now, one of the things that we know about Jesus is as the Son of God, he's perfect, right? And I've said that the wilderness is preparation. So I started thinking, I said, well, Jesus is already perfect. What does he need to be prepared for? He's already perfect, right? Why does he need to go into the wilderness? Now, you and I, we're different. We are imperfect folk, aren't we? I know that. I'm not perfect. And so when I go into the wilderness, I expect that there's some things that God wants to tweak, certain things he needs to adjust, certain things he needs me to grow up, certain things he needs me to let go of. I know that. And that's with all of us. We need to do that. There is this sense when we go in the wilderness that we do have to focus on ourselves as a part of it. But Jesus in the wilderness, he didn't have to fix anything about himself. So why is he in the wilderness? So there's this other aspect of the wilderness that we have to come to understand. And it is this. Jesus was perfect, but God was not preparing Jesus to minister to the world. When Jesus went into the wilderness, God didn't say, hey, you need to score high, you need to get A's on these aspects of your life before you can go minister to the world. He didn't say that. Jesus was already perfect. So what was going on then? God was not preparing Jesus to minister to the world. Instead, God was preparing the world for the ministry of Jesus. You understand what I'm saying here? It's a big difference. You see, the wilderness, God used the wilderness to change us, but also God uses the wilderness to change the world so that the world is ready for your next big step. Am I making myself clear? Before your next big step lies what? Wilderness. But the wilderness preparation is not just for you, it's also for everyone around you. And here's the thing that I've learned, is that while I've been working, struggling in the wilderness, I realized something. That the people around me are changing too. Something's happening with them. I call this concept the hinge effect. A door has a hinge, right? The door has a hinge. Right there. That's a hinge. And the thing about a hinge is that if you just focus on the hinge, you'll see it move like that much, right? The hinge goes like this. Right? That's all it does. That's all you see. If you look at the hinge, there's not much movement there. But if you look at the door, whoosh, huge movement. What happens to us is we feel like we know where to hinge. And so we feel all the pressure, all the friction, all the weight of the transformation that God is doing. But the thing is that if we just focus on ourselves, we miss the wonderful thing that God is doing in the world, in the lives of those around. This is the hint. When you're in the wilderness, because you're hungry, because you're tempted, because of these things, you're wondering, God, are you going to do anything? I have these needs. But what God is saying is that it's not just you that I'm working on. The whole world around me. I was recently talking to someone who was struggling with an illness. And what was amazing to me was while the person was struggling with the illness, they were praising God because of the changes happening in the family around them. The family was becoming more loving. The family was becoming more patient. The family was becoming more gracious and giving. The family was spending time together. And if this person had only focused on, oh God, please heal what God believes, they would have missed all of these wonderful things happening in the family. But because they looked up, they looked beyond themselves. They stopped looking at the hinge. They looked at the door. And they saw that God was opening a mighty door in the lives of the family. That's what's happening with you. Yes, God has to work on us because I don't know about you, but I get D's and F's in certain areas of my life. And I need to get A's. God's working on it. But at the same time that God is working on me, I have to remember it's not all about me. God is also working out in the world to open the door in the lives of everyone else. And God, in the same way that God was not preparing Jesus for his ministry to the world, but God was preparing the world for the ministry of Jesus. Your next big step lies before your next big step lies with us because God has got to prepare the people around you. This is why Romans 8:28 means so much to me. Because we know that God causes what? Everything. Everything. Everything to work together for the good of those who love God. And I know you love God. And are called according to his purpose for them. Look. You see what's happening. Your life is greater than just what you're experiencing. It goes beyond that. God is wanting to use you. You're a hinge. And God is going to open this door. This beautiful, blessed, amazing, divine door. Amazing. So stop looking at just the hinge. Look beyond. Look beyond yourself. This way, you will prepare the way for the Lord's coming. You will create the road. You will clear the road for him. Because now you're looking up. You say, yeah, God, I see that. I see that road. I see what you do. Before your next big step lies wilderness. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for blessing us with being able to understand this, have perspective on the wilderness and seeing what you're doing and how you're moving, and not just in our lives. And we know that we have things that we've got to change in our lives. But we thank you that you're going to do something bigger, better, farther, massively amazing beyond us. We thank you for that. So I pray, Father, that you'd help us to look beyond ourselves, to look beyond the hinge, and to see you at work moving the door. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.